Let's start off with the overall market outlook. As I mentioned, it seems that some investors are liquidating their positions, not only because we have seen a lot of concerns due to the holiday season, but also a lot of investors want to be involved in rights issues and bond issuances as well. How do you see this playing out towards the end of the year? Do you think the NSE 20 faces more downside?
I think the NSE 20 faces a bit more downside as focus shifts to the KPLC rights issue and the ongoing Safaricom bond raise. I think the uptake of the rights issue for KPLC has been a bit slow, but what normally happens and has been happening in the past is investors sort of take a wait-and-see stance to see where the price finally settles off at. You mentioned earlier the price closed at a price of 3 shillings yesterday. I think the local and international investors are waiting to see if it will come lower before they decide to actually take on additional rights through the stock exchange.
You're saying that the uptake is going to increase down the line. What kind of prices are you looking at into next week?
I think so. The price will be essentially driven by demand and supply. I think at the current level of about 3, we'll probably see a little bit more demand at that current price, which will probably push the price up towards next week. I think it will probably trade between 2.5 shillings to between 4 shillings over the time.
Looking at the Safaricom bond issuance as well, as I mentioned, second tranche coming to the fore, how's the uptake been for this? Safaricom being one of those favourites, but when you look at its share price, it's been pretty stagnant over the last couple of months, despite the fact that we saw some positive earnings growth, and also given the fact that they have put in place their data strategy.
I think for Safaricom, the effect of the price was is going to be felt more significantly in the second half of their financial year, because the price was actually started in August, and it's important to note that their half year comes in September. So the bulk of the effect of the price was will actually be felt in the second half of their financials, which are due early next year. As for now, I wouldn't be able to comment on the uptake of this because this is done outside of the stock exchange by local and international fund managers. But once it's done, then they'll be able to release information to the public that we'll be able to discuss going forward.
Looking at the telecom sector as a whole in Kenya, it is starting to heighten the tensions between some of the likes of the telecoms companies. Looking at SR Telecoms now teaming up with the Equity Bank and saying that they are going to be including other banks down the line. It is all about mobile money transfers. We saw the World Bank saying that this is one of the big reasons that we've seen strong growth coming through in Kenya. How do you see the telecoms war playing out in 2011?
I think mobile banking is going to be the key thing to watch out for Kenyan banks. And as was done halfway through this year between Safaricom and Equity Bank, they launched M-Kesho, which was ideally mobile banking. The thing about that M-Kesho was a one-way exclusivity contract with M-Kesho, Equity Bank being able to replicate the same product with other telecom providers, but Safaricom was not able to replicate the same product with other banks for at least 12 months. This is according to what management at Equity Bank had stated. I think the upside is for banks that can use different telcos that are actually battling it out to get the dominant market share or the second dominant market share in the Kenyan market space. So it's a more favorable environment for the banks as compared to the environment for the telcos that are operating in the Kenyan market as of now.
Mbithe, looking at the NSE 20, as I mentioned, we have seen a bit of downside. In fact, we're sitting at 3-4-month lows or so. Is this a buying opportunity for many investors still looking to cherry pick before the new year starts?
I think it's a good buying opportunity because as focus shifts to Safaricom and to KPLC, there could be a bit of upside on some of the counters. For instance, as I've said earlier, banks will definitely be some of the key gainers on the stock exchange and in the in the economy overall going into next year. Some banks like KCB have begun to look slightly cheaper. It's doing anything between 21 to 22 shillings. The price has come off on that, so that's looking attractive. We have the breweries, we have the cement companies also beginning to look slightly cheaper than they were a month or about 6 weeks ago. So I think as the year goes to close, it will be some time to actually start looking at some stocks and getting into some counters just before the year closes.